announced by OPS president will be to Indonesia issues affecting the region and the world. During the state visit, the two presidents will witness the signing of several key agreements in the areas of defense and culture, as well as comprehensive plan of action that will chart the country's bilateral priorities over the next 5 years. The president will also meet with business leaders to promote trade and investment to support the Philippines' economic agenda under his administration. After the visit to Indonesia, the president will proceed to Singapore for a state visit from 6 to 7 September at the invitation of President Halima Yacob. President Marcos Jr. will have separate meetings with the Singaporean President and Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong to discuss the close bilateral relations between the two countries, as well as regional and global issues. President Marcos Jr. and Prime Minister Lee will also witness the signing of agreements in the areas of counterterrorism and data privacy. As Singapore is a key trade and investment partner of the Philippines, an economic briefing and business roundtable meetings will be organized where the president intends to invite investments into the Philippines and create more job opportunities in the country. The president will also meet with the Filipino communities in Indonesia and Singapore to personally assure them of the government's continuing commitment to protect their rights and promote their welfare as overseas Filipinos. The president's back-to-back visit to Indonesia and Singapore as his inaugural overseas trip demonstrate the importance of the Philippines places on the relations with our fellow ASEAN neighbors. That ends the statement on the state visit of President Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos to Indonesia and Singapore.
Thank you, Ambassador Daza. For first question, we have Celerina Monte of NHK.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I just want to ask, you have mentioned about this supposed agreement that the Philippines and Indonesia as well as Singapore will be signing during the state visits. Could you elaborate more on the defense cooperation that the Philippines and Indonesia will be signing, as well as on the agreement between Singapore and the Philippines regarding counterterrorism and data privacy?
Okay, thank you, Celerina. For the two questions, you're asking details of the defense agreement to be signed between the Philippines and Indonesia, as well as the counterterrorism and data privacy deals with Singapore. Maybe it would be useful for all to actually, for me to share with you the deliverables in both countries. So for Indonesia, what is being envisioned is one, the signing of a plan of action for 5 years, which is 2022 to 2027. And this will be signed between the Department of Foreign Affairs as well as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Indonesia. The plan of action will lay out comprehensive and actionable roadmap for bilateral cooperation over the next 5 years. It will be a comprehensive document that outlines bilateral commitments for and as well as in a wide range of areas of cooperation. Among the areas of cooperation that are being identified are in terms of security and defense, border management, counterterrorism, economy, energy, maritime affairs, culture, education, labor, health, and consular matters, among other things. That's the first deliverable for Indonesia. The second is in terms of what you were interested in, the renewal of the 1997 Agreement on Cooperative Activities in the field of defense and security. The active defense and military engagement between our two countries, the Philippines and Indonesia, is really anchored on a 1997 cooperative agreement in the field of defense and security. or what is called the DSCA. The agreement has expired, and now we are renewing this agreement. It will serve as the mother framework for all defense and security cooperation with Indonesia. It is significant as the defense cooperation between the two countries has actually increased through the years. Among the collaboration that's being identified are, of course, cooperation between the defense establishment, engagement in joint and combined training activities, border security, exchange of visits, education, information sharing, development of interoperability, among others. So that's the second deliverable that's being envisioned for Indonesia. And the third is actually in terms of the renewal of the MOU on cultural cooperation, which will
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, Ambassador. Do we have, after the trip to Indonesia and Singapore, do we have any other foreign trips scheduled for the President? Thank you.
Thank you, Jonah. I think we all know that the President will address the UNGA Assembly on 20 September 2022. He will present the Philippine vision for the United Nations and our role in fostering international cooperation to address pressing global challenges. During the visit to New York and the United States, bilateral meetings with other world leaders are being arranged, but this is still subject to confirmation. Bilateral meetings with key partners are also being scheduled for the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. And in his trip to the United States, and as in Indonesia and Singapore, the President also intends to meet the Filipino community during his visit and hold a number of business meetings which are being organized by the Departments of Finance and Trade and Industry. So in terms of a forthcoming trip after this state visits to Indonesia and Singapore, there is the trip to New York and the United States to participate in the UN General Assembly.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador. We still have a few more questions. I'm sorry. Jerome Morales of Reuters.
Right. Thank you, Ambassador, for this briefing. Appreciate this. Which companies or what types of firms are invited in the business roundtable meetings with President Marcos in Singapore? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. We will get back to you. The information that we have at this point, because we are not the one arranging and preparing for it, is that there will be a series of meetings. There will be roundtables and a series of meetings, and there will also be economic investment agreements that will be signed by private sector. We will get back to you. I hope our team is actually listening. I've noted that there are a number of questions that we will have to get back on, so we will revert to you once we get the information.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Ambassador, we have a question from Karen Oyong of DZRH. Will President Marcos reciprocate the invite of Indonesia and Singapore?
It's not for me to answer that. Maybe OP is in the best position to answer it.
Okay, we have another question from Alvin Pelobello. Alvin? Okay. Okay, I'll just read his question. Was there a specific date when PBBM set to visit US?
What we know is it will be during the time of UNGA. So what is already clear is that he will speak in September 20. So in terms of the specific details, when he's going, how long he will stay, we do not have information on that yet.
Ma'am, we have one more question from Vince Lopez of Manila Standard. Vince? Okay, let me just read his question. Follow up on the UNGA speech of PBBM. Will the President intend also to meet with President Joe Biden during his US trip?
I partially answered it by saying that there are arrangements being made for bilateral meetings, but it's still being addressed, and there's no confirmation on any of these meetings as yet. At this point, we'd like to focus on Indonesia and Singapore being the inaugural state visits of the President. Yes.
Okay, do we have other questions? Okay, one last question. Ambassador, will the DFA or OPS issue regular statements with regard to the outcome of the President's engagement? From Dreo Calonzo of Bloomberg.
Asec, siguro you will answer that. Kasi it's OPS that will take the lead pag state visits. But for us in the FA, I'd like to say that, of course, the SFA will have his own program, and where possible, we will actually have regular releases on the activities of SFA in this visit.
Okay. I think the other questions should be answered by the OPS or by the press secretary or the OP. I think we don't have any more questions, ma'am. Thank you very much, Ambassador Daza, TFA spokesperson. And thank you very much, Malacanang Press Corps and FOCAP members. Good afternoon.
Maraming salamat po to the DFA Press Corps as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.